Hi, everyone. Quick one for you. Make sure you subscribe and like before we start. Thank you. I sit in my car staring at the building that houses Sarah's office. It's late, the kind of late that makes the world feel empty and forgotten. The parking lot is nearly deserted, just a few scattered cars left behind. I'm here to do her a favor, just a routine check on her computer for viruses, something I've done a dozen times before. But tonight, something feels different. There's this gnawing feeling in my gut, a sense that I can't shake. I try to push it aside, telling myself it's nothing, just paranoia. But it lingers, like a shadow in the back of my mind. I've always trusted her. 8 years of marriage, a solid partnership built on love, or so I thought. My job as a self-employed IT consultant isn't glamorous, but it gives me the freedom to work from home. Sarah's always appreciated that. It's been one of the things that kept us close, or at least that's what I've convinced myself. Lately, though, something's changed. Sarah's been working late more often, and when she comes home, she's distant, distracted. She says it's the demands of the job. Being a high-powered executive at a marketing firm isn't easy after all. But the more she says it, the less I believe it. The increasing distance between us has planted seeds of doubt. Little things, like the way she doesn't meet my eyes when she talks about work or how she's suddenly guarding her phone like it's a state secret. I shake my head trying to clear it. I'm just being paranoid. She's busy, stressed. That's all it is. I get out of the car, feeling the cool night air against my skin as I head inside. The building is eerily quiet, the echo of my footsteps the only sound as I make my way to her office. When I open the door, the familiar scent of her perfume hits me, a reminder of the woman I love, the woman I trust. I sit down at her desk, powering on the computer, ready to run the usual scans. It's a routine task, something that should take no more than a few minutes. But as the desktop loads, something catches my eye, a folder labeled private. It's out of place, just sitting there, tempting me. My heart starts to race, a mix of curiosity and dread washing over me. I shouldn't look. I know I shouldn't. But the pull is too strong, the need to know too overwhelming. I click on the folder, holding my breath as it opens. Inside, there's a single video file. My hand hovers over the mouse, hesitating. Then, without thinking, I double-click. The screen flickers, and the video begins to play. What I see next makes my blood run cold. My hands start to shake, and I can feel my world crashing down around me. Everything I thought I knew about Sarah, about us, shatters in an instant. The video starts playing, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. Sarah, my Sarah, is on the screen, stripped bare of the woman I thought I knew. She's in a hotel room, her body twisted between her boss and two other men I've never seen before. They're all over her, taking turns, and she's letting them. No, more than that, she's into it, moaning and moving with them in ways I've never seen her do with me. My stomach churns, bile rising in my throat as I watch. I should stop it, close the laptop, but I can't. I'm frozen, glued to the horror unfolding in front of me. My hands start to tremble, and I feel the world closing in around me. It's like the air has been sucked out of the room and I can't breathe. My wife is in front of me, and yet she's a stranger. The woman in the video isn't the woman I married. She's wild, uninhibited, completely lost in the moment with them. And it's not just sex, it's something darker, something raw and degrading. They're using her, and she's letting them. Worse, she's enjoying it. Rage bubbles up inside me, mixing with the overwhelming sense of betrayal. I can't wrap my head around this. How could she do this? How could she hide this from me? Our marriage, our life together, it's all been a lie. I'm humiliated, but more than that, I'm terrified. What else don't I know? If she can hide something this big, what else has she been keeping from me? My first instinct is to storm out of here, to confront her, to demand answers. But as I start to move, something holds me back. What if this video gets out? If people see this, it will destroy her, and by extension, me. Her career would be over, her reputation in shreds. And what about me? Everyone would know. I'd be the man whose wife was passed around by her boss and his cronies like some kind of plaything. I can't let that happen. But I also can't just ignore what I've seen. I close the laptop, but the images are burned into my mind. I feel sick, like I've just witnessed something unspeakable. My heart is pounding, my thoughts spinning out of control. I need answers. I need to know why she did this, who these men are, and how long it's been going on. But most of all, I need to know who my wife really is. Because right now, I don't recognize her at all. The drive home is a blur. I keep replaying the video in my head, every detail searing into my brain. Her face, her body, the sounds she made, it's all too much. By the time I pull into the driveway, my hands are shaking so badly I can barely turn off the ignition. I sit there for a moment trying to gather my thoughts, but they're too scattered, too raw. I get out of the car, my legs feeling like they're made of lead, and stumble into the house. The place is dark and quiet, like it always is this time of night. Sarah's still at work, or at least that's what she told me. I wonder if she's with him right now, or one of those other men. The thought makes me want to vomit. I head to the kitchen, needing something to calm my nerves. I pour a drink, downing it in one gulp, then another. But it doesn't help. The alcohol just burns, fueling the anger and the fear that's gripping me tighter by the second. I can't sit here waiting for her. I have to do something. I have to confront her. But as the minutes tick by, doubt creeps in. What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation? A ridiculous thought, but I cling to it, desperate for anything that makes this less horrible. I grab my phone and start scrolling through her messages, her emails, anything that might give me some kind of clue. But there's nothing. Just the usual work chatter, friends checking in, and a few messages from me. It's like she's living a double life and I'm the idiot husband who never noticed. When I hear the front door open, my heart leaps into my throat. She's home. I can hear her moving around, kicking off her shoes, dropping her bag on the counter. For a second, I think about pretending everything is normal, just to buy myself more time to figure this out. But I can't, not after what I saw. I walk into the living room and she's there smiling at me like nothing's wrong. It makes me sick. "Hey," she says, her voice warm and familiar. "You're up late. Everything okay?" I can't keep the anger out of my voice. "I went by your office tonight." Her smile falters, just a little, but enough that I notice. "Oh, why?" "I was doing you a favor," I say, each word sharp, checking your computer for viruses. Her face goes pale, and I see it. The panic in her eyes. She knows. She knows what I found. I didn't ask you to do that," she stammers, trying to sound casual, but I can hear the tremor in her voice. "No, you didn't," I say, stepping closer. "But I did it anyway, and I found something, Sarah. Something you didn't want me to see." She freezes, her eyes wide, fear written all over her face. What? What did you find?" "You know exactly what I found," I snap. "The video, you, your boss, and 2 other men." "What the hell is going on, Sarah?" She gasps, her hand flying to her mouth as if she can hold back the truth. "Oh God," she whispers. "I can explain." "Explain?" I laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. "How do you explain something like that? How do you explain betraying me in the worst possible way?" Tears well up in her eyes and she reaches out to me, but I pull back, disgusted. "Please let me explain," she begs, her voice cracking. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I say coldly. "You're screwing your boss, and God knows who else. How long has this been going on? How many times have you done this?" "It's not like that," she cries, desperation in her voice. "I didn't want to do it. He forced me." I stop, staring at her. "Forced?" My mind races, trying to process what she's saying. "What do you mean he forced you?" "He threatened me," she sobs. "He said if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd ruin me. He'd destroy my career, our life." I didn't have a choice. I want to believe her, but the images from the video keep flashing through my mind. She didn't look like she was being forced. She looked like she was enjoying it. "You expect me to believe that?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. "You didn't look like you were being forced, Sarah. You look like you wanted it." Her face crumples, and she falls to her knees in front of me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Please, she whispers. Please, you have to believe me. I didn't want any of it. He made me do it, and once I was in, I couldn't get out. I was trapped. I'm torn. Part of me wants to believe her, wants to think that she's a victim in all of this. But another part of me can't get past the images in that video. The way she moved, the sounds she made, it was like she was a different person, someone I don't know. I don't know what to believe, I say finally, my voice hollow. But I need answers, Sarah, and I need them now. She nods, wiping her tears away with trembling hands. I'll tell you everything, she says, her voice shaky but determined. But you have to promise me one thing. What? Promise me you won't do anything stupid. This goes deeper than you know. These men, they're dangerous. If you do anything to cross them, they'll come after you. And they won't stop until they've destroyed everything. I swallow hard, fear creeping up my spine. What have you gotten us into? I didn't mean to, she says, her voice breaking. I just wanted to keep my job, to keep us safe. But it's spiraled out of control, and now I don't know how to get out. I stare at her, the woman I thought I knew, now a stranger to me. My mind races trying to make sense of everything she's told me. The video, the threats, the lies, it's all too much. But one thing is clear. I can't just walk away from this. I need to know the truth, all of it, and I need to find a way to protect us both from whatever is coming next. Tell me everything, I say, my voice steady. And then we'll figure out what to do. I spend the next few days in a fog, barely functioning, my mind consumed with what I've seen and what Sarah told me. I can't focus on anything else. Every time I close my eyes, I see that video, her body entangled with those men, the way she moved, the sounds she made. And then there's her story, the claim that she was forced, trapped in something she couldn't escape. I want to believe her, but the doubt gnaws at me. How could she let it go so far? How could she hide this from me for so long? I decide I need more than just her words. I need proof, something concrete to make sense of this nightmare. So I start digging, slipping back into the habits I've honed over years of working in IT. I hack into her emails first, combing through every message, looking for clues. It's tedious work, but I'm methodical, focused. I sift through hundreds of messages, some mundane, others more concerning. Then I find a series of emails between Sarah and her boss, the tone of them cold, businesslike, but with a sinister undertone. The messages are vague, almost cryptic, but there's something off about them. He's controlling, demanding, and there are veiled threats if she doesn't comply with his requests. One email in particular makes my blood run cold. He mentions a meeting with the others and how Sarah needs to be on her best behavior. The date matches the timestamp on the video. I feel sick to my stomach. I dig deeper, hacking into her phone records, bank statements, anything I can get my hands on. What I find only deepens the mystery. There are transactions to offshore accounts, large sums of money moving in and out, far more than we've ever had. The cryptic messages on her phone from unknown numbers, the late-night calls she never mentioned, it all paints a picture of someone leading a double life. But is it by choice or coercion? That's the question I can't answer. Finally, I confront Sarah again, cornering her in the living room as she's sipping her morning coffee. I hacked into your emails, I say, my voice low and hard. I saw the messages from your boss. Her face pales and she puts down the cup, her hands trembling. I told you, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. He's been controlling me, blackmailing me. I didn't have a choice. What about the money? I snap. The offshore accounts, the late-night calls? You expect me to believe you had no choice? Tears fill her eyes, but I'm beyond caring. I need answers. The money, it was his way of keeping me quiet, keeping me under control. He knew I'd never go to the police if I was complicit, if I had something to lose. I shake my head, trying to make sense of it all. And the calls? Instructions, threats, making sure I didn't step out of line. He has connections, powerful people who can ruin lives with a phone call. I was trapped, and every time I tried to pull away, he tightened the leash. Her words sound desperate, but they also ring true. I can see the fear in her eyes, the way her whole body tenses as she talks about him. But I also can't forget what I saw in that video, the way she seemed to be enjoying herself. In the video? I asked, my voice breaking. It didn't look like you were being forced. It looked like you were into it. She flinches like I've slapped her, tears spilling down her cheeks. He drugged me, she says, her voice cracking. Every time he'd slip something into my drink. I don't know what it was, but it made me lose control, made everything feel good. But it wasn't me, not really. It was him, manipulating me, making sure I wouldn't fight back. I want to believe her, want to trust that she's telling the truth, but how can I be sure? How can I trust anything she says after what I've seen? I need proof, I say finally. I need something concrete to back up your story, because right now all I have is your word, and that's not enough. She nods, wiping her eyes. I understand. I'll help you. There's more, but it's dangerous. If we're going to do this, we need to be careful. These people, they won't hesitate to kill us if they think we're a threat. Her words send a shiver down my spine. I've already seen how far they're willing to go, but hearing her say it out loud makes it real. This isn't just about infidelity or betrayal anymore. This is about survival. Over the next few days, Sarah and I start working together, piecing together the fragments of her story. She shows me more emails, bank statements, and even a burner phone she's been using to communicate with her boss under the radar. The more I see, the more I start to believe her. There's a pattern, a method to the madness, and it all points to a man who's been systematically breaking her down, trapping her in a web of lies and manipulation. But the deeper we dig, the more dangerous it becomes. I start noticing strange cars parked near our house, men in suits lingering on the corners of our street. I'm followed to work one day, a black SUV tailing me for miles before peeling off. Our phone lines start crackling with static, and we get strange calls in the middle of the night. No one on the other end, just silence. Then one night I come home to find our front door ajar. My heart pounds in my chest as I push it open, stepping inside cautiously. The living room is trashed, cushions ripped apart, papers scattered everywhere. I hear a noise upstairs and rush up, only to find Sarah huddled in the corner of our bedroom, shaking, her eyes wide with terror. They were here, she whispers, her voice trembling. They went through everything. They left a note. She hands me a crumpled piece of paper and my blood runs cold as I read the words scrawled in black ink. Stop digging, or next time we won't just be sending a message. My hands shake as I crumple the note, rage boiling inside me. They've made this personal. They've invaded my home, terrorized my wife, and now they're threatening our lives. I can't back down now, I won't. But as the days go by, the pressure builds. I can feel them closing in on us, tightening the noose. The strange cars keep appearing, the phone calls more frequent. I start losing sleep, jumping at every noise, every shadow. I'm constantly on edge. Ciao, waiting for the next attack. One night, I'm jolted awake by a loud crash downstairs. I grab the baseball bat I keep by the bed and rush down, my heart hammering in my chest. But when I reach the living room, there's no one there. Just the shattered remains of our front window and another note pinned to the wall with a knife. This is your final warning. I can't take it anymore. I grab my phone and call the police, but when they arrive, they're less than helpful. The officers who show up are dismissive, almost mocking, as if they've seen this 100 times before. They take a report, but I can tell they're not going to do anything. To them, we're just another domestic disturbance, another couple in over their heads. After they leave, Sarah and I sit in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. We have to stop, she says finally, her voice weak. They're not going to stop until we're dead. We can't fight them. But I can't let it go. I've come too far, seen too much. I need to see this through to bring these bastards down. We're too deep in this now, I say, shaking my head. If we stop, they win. They'll keep coming after us until we're dead, or worse. She looks at me, fear and desperation in her eyes. So what do? We fight, I say, my voice cold and determined. We find a way to expose them, to bring them down. We're not backing down. Not now. Sarah nods, but I can see the doubt in her eyes, the fear that we're way out of our depth. And maybe we are, but I don't see any other way. We have to keep going, no matter the cost. Over the next few days, we start planning our next move, gathering all the evidence we've collected, trying to find a way to get it into the right hands. We're careful, paranoid even, double-checking everything, watching our backs constantly. But the threats keep coming, and I can feel the walls closing in. We're running out of time, and I know it's only a matter of time before they make their next move. One evening, as we're going over our plan, there's a knock at the door. My heart skips a beat, and I grab the bat, motioning for Sarah to stay back. I inch toward the door, peering through the peephole. To my relief, it's a man in a suit, but he's holding up a badge. FBI. I open the door cautiously, and he introduces himself as Agent Dawson. He says he's been investigating Sarah's boss for years, and he knows what's going on. He's here to help, but we have to act fast. He's got a team ready to move, but they need us to testify, to provide the evidence that will bring the whole operation down. Sarah and I exchange a look, and I can see the fear in her eyes, but also a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this is our way out. I nod, agreeing to help. It's risky, but it's the only way. As Agent Dawson leaves, I feel a mixture of relief and fear. The stakes have just gotten higher, but now we have a real chance to end this nightmare once and for all. But I know that before it's over, things are going to get a lot worse. The fight is just beginning. I'm sitting in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. The plan is simple, but it feels like I'm about to walk into a lion's den. Sarah's boss agreed to meet me at a secluded spot on the outskirts of town, and I've got the evidence, the emails, the bank transactions, all tucked away on a USB drive in my pocket. I've already sent copies to Agent Dawson, but I need to see this through myself. I need to confront the man who's torn my life apart. Sarah is beside me, pale and trembling. I almost left her at home, but she insisted on coming. I'm not sure if it's out of guilt or fear, but I couldn't say no. "Are you sure about this?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," I admit, "but it's too late to back out now." She nods, staring straight ahead. There's a sadness in her eyes that I've never seen before, and it kills me. I used to know her so well, but now I'm not sure if I know her at all. I turn the key, the engine roaring to life, and we drive in silence. The meeting spot is an old, abandoned warehouse. It's dark, the only light coming from the moon and a few flickering streetlights. I park the car, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "Stay here," I tell Sarah, but she shakes her head. "I'm coming with you." I want to argue, to tell her to stay safe, but I can see the determination in her eyes. I nod and we step out of the car together. The warehouse looms ahead, a massive, decaying structure that reeks of rust and decay. My heart pounds in my chest as we approach the entrance, a pair of heavy metal doors hanging off their hinges. I push them open, and we step inside. It's dark, the air thick with dust and the stench of old oil and mold. I can hear the sound of our footsteps echoing through the vast space. Then I see him, Sarah's boss, standing in the center of the room, flanked by two men I recognize from the video. My blood boils at the sight of them, but I force myself to stay calm. "So," he says, his voice echoing in the cavernous space, "you finally decided to grow a spine." I'm impressed. I clench my fists, resisting the urge to lunge at him, and "It's over," I say, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "I've sent everything to the FBI. They're coming for you." He laughs, a cold, hollow sound that sends chills down my spine. "You really think they can touch me? I own half the city, and the other half is too scared to cross me. You've got nothing." I pull out the USB drive, holding it up for him to see. "This says otherwise." He raises an eyebrow, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "You really think I'm stupid enough to let you walk out of here with that? You're in way over your head." I take a step forward, trying to muster all the courage I can. "Maybe, but I'm not backing down. He snaps his fingers, and the two men step forward. I tense, ready for a fight, but Sarah grabs my arm, her grip tight. "Don't," she whispers. "We can't win this." But I'm done running, done hiding. I break free of her grip, stepping forward to face her boss. "I'm not afraid of you." He stares at me, his eyes cold and calculating. "You should be." The men move in, but before they can reach me, there's a sudden flash of lights outside, followed by the sound of tires screeching. I turn just in time to see a convoy of black SUVs barreling toward the warehouse. The cavalry has arrived. Sarah's boss curses under his breath, his calm demeanor cracking for the first time. "You idiot," he spits, glaring at me. "You just signed your death warrant." The SUVs come to a stop and armed agents pour out, surrounding the warehouse. I breathe a sigh of relief, but it's short-lived. Sarah's boss reaches into his coat, pulling out a gun. Time seems to slow as he raises it, aiming directly at me. Before I can react, there's a deafening bang, and I feel something warm splatter across my face. For a split second, I think I've been shot, but then I realize it's not my blood. I turn to see Sarah standing beside me, holding a gun of her own, her hands shaking. Her boss is on the ground, a pool of blood spreading beneath him, his lifeless eyes staring up at the ceiling. "Sarah," I whisper, but she doesn't respond. She just drops the gun and collapses into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The FBI agents rush in, securing the scene, but it's all a blur to me. I hold Sarah close, trying to process what just happened. I've dreamed of this moment, of seeing the man who destroyed my life brought down, but not like this. Not by Sarah's hand. An agent pulls me aside, asking questions, but I can barely hear him. All I can think about is Sarah, the way she pulled the trigger without hesitation. The woman I knew would never have done something like that, but then again, I'm not sure I ever really knew her. Hours later, after the dust has settled and the warehouse is swarming with law enforcement, I sit with Sarah in the back of an ambulance. She's silent, staring off into space, her hands still trembling. I don't know what to say, how to comfort her. The woman I've spent the last 8 years with is gone, replaced by someone I barely recognize. Agent Dawson approaches, his face grim. "You two did good," he says, though there's no warmth in his voice. "We've got enough to take down the whole operation." I nod numbly, not really hearing him. "What happens now?" I ask, my voice hollow. "We'll take care of the cleanup," he says. "But you two, you need to disappear for a while. There will be fallout from this, and it won't be pretty." I glance at Sarah, who's still staring blankly ahead. "And Sarah?" Dawson's expression softens slightly. "She did what she had to do, self-defense, given the circumstances. But she's going to need help, and so are you." I nod again, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. We're alive, but barely, and I don't know how we're going to survive the aftermath of this. That night, Sarah and I return to our home, but it doesn't feel like home anymore. Everything is tainted, every corner filled with memories of the nightmare we've just endured. I try to sleep, but the images keep flashing through my mind. Sarah pulling the trigger, the look in her eyes, the way she crumbled afterward. I toss and turn, unable to find any peace. In the early hours of the morning, I give up on sleep and head downstairs. The house is eerily quiet, the darkness pressing in on me. I pour myself a drink, hoping to numb the chaos in my mind, but it doesn't help. I feel lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. I hear footsteps behind me and turn to see Sarah standing in the doorway. Her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She looks at me, and for a moment I see a glimmer of the woman I fell in love with, but it's fleeting, disappearing as quickly as it came. "I'm sorry," she whispers, her voice barely audible. I swallow hard, not sure how to respond. "You did what you had to do," I say, though the words feel empty. I want to comfort her, to tell her everything will be okay, but I don't know if that's true anymore. She steps closer, her hand reaching out to touch mine. Her fingers are cold, trembling. "I'm so sorry," she says again, tears welling up in her eyes. I pull her into my arms, holding her tightly as she breaks down, sobbing against my chest. I want to tell her that we'll get through this, that we'll find a way to rebuild our lives, but I can't find the words. All I can do is hold her, hoping that somehow we'll find a way to move forward. But deep down, I know that nothing will ever be the same. The love we once had is shattered, replaced by a fragile bond forged in the fires of betrayal, fear, and violence. And I don't know if it's strong enough to survive. As the first light of dawn creeps through the windows, I hold Sarah close, feeling the weight of what we've lost. We're alive, but at what cost? The fight is over, but the battle has just begun. We're both broken, scarred by what we've done, and I don't know if we'll ever be whole again. But for now, all I can do is hold on to her and hope that somehow we'll find a way to heal. The plan is in motion. We're risking everything, but we don't have a choice. Sarah and I are holed up in a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, a place so run down that even the cockroaches look like they've seen better days. The walls are thin, and every sound from the street outside seems to echo in the room. It's a far cry from the life we used to have, but right now it's our only safe haven. Agent Dawson has been in contact, coordinating the final steps. He's confident that with the evidence we've gathered, Sarah's testimony, the bank records, and the emails, we can bring down the whole operation. But there's a catch. We need to lure the key players into one final meeting, and that means putting ourselves back in the line of fire. Sarah's nervous, her hands trembling as she types out the message to her former boss. I watch her, feeling a mix of emotions I can't quite untangle. I want to protect her, to shield her from the danger we're walking into. But I also know she's part of the reason we're here in the first place. The trust between us is shattered, but I still can't let her face this alone. She hits send, and we both sit in silence, waiting for a response. The minutes drag on, each one filled with tension. I can feel the weight of the decision we've made pressing down on me. If this doesn't work, if they figure out what we're doing before it's too late. I push the thought aside, refusing to let doubt creep in. My phone buzzes and I glance at the screen. It's a message from Dawson. They took the bait. Meeting set for tomorrow night. We'll be in position. Stay sharp. I show the message to Sarah and she nods, a flicker of determination in her eyes. It's almost over, she says, her voice steady despite the fear I know she's feeling. Yeah, I say, though I'm not sure I believe it. There's still so much that could go wrong. That night, sleep eludes me. I lie in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying everything that's led us to this point. The video, the betrayal, the violence. We've been through hell, and I know we're not out of it yet. Sarah lies beside me, her breathing shallow and restless. I reach out, my hand hovering over hers for a moment before I pull back. I'm not sure if she even wants my comfort anymore, or if I'm capable of giving it. The next day passes in a blur. We don't talk much, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Sarah spends most of the day pacing the room, her nerves frayed to the breaking point. I try to keep myself busy, checking and rechecking the evidence, making sure everything is in place. But no matter what I do, the gnawing anxiety in my gut doesn't go away. As night falls, we make our way to the meeting spot. It's another abandoned building, this one even more isolated than the last. I can feel the tension in the air as we drive through the empty streets, every shadow seeming to hide a threat. I'm on edge, my senses heightened, ready for anything. We arrive early, parking the car a few blocks away and making our way to the building on foot. The plan is simple. Sarah will go inside and meet with her boss and his associates, playing along just long enough for Dawson and his team to move in. I'll be waiting nearby, ready to signal the agents as soon as things start to go south. It's risky, but it's the best shot we've got. Sarah squeezes my hand as we approach the building, her grip firm despite the fear in her eyes. We can do this, she says, more to herself than to me. I nod, though my stomach is in knots. Just stick to the plan. We'll get through this. She gives me a small, shaky smile before slipping inside, leaving me alone in the shadows. I take a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The building looms over me, dark and foreboding, like a monument to everything that's gone wrong in our lives. I wait, my heart pounding in my chest, every second feeling like an eternity. Inside, I can hear muffled voices, the low rumble of conversation mixed with the occasional burst of laughter. I strain to make out the words, but it's no use. All I can do is wait for the signal. And then it comes, Sarah's voice, raised in alarm, cutting through the silence like a knife. No, don't! I spring into action, pulling out my phone and sending the signal to Dawson. Within seconds, the night is filled with the sound of sirens, the flash of blue and red lights illuminating the darkness. The FBI agents move in, their guns drawn, shouting commands as they storm the building. I rush inside, my heart in my throat. The scene is chaos, agents shouting, men struggling as they're forced to the ground, the crackle of handcuffs locking into place. I scan the room searching for Sarah, and then I see her on the floor, her boss towering over her, a gun in his hand. No, I shout, charging forward, but before I can reach her, there's a deafening bang. The room erupts in noise, and for a moment, I think I'm too late. But then I see her boss stagger, his eyes wide with shock as he drops to the floor, a bullet wound in his chest. Sarah scrambles to her feet, her face pale, but she's unharmed. I reach her side, pulling her into my arms, the relief overwhelming. It's over, I whisper, holding her close. She clings to me, trembling, her breath coming in ragged gasps. It's over, she echoes, though I can hear the doubt in her voice. The aftermath is a blur. The FBI rounds up the rest of the men, the building swarming with agents as they secure the scene. Dawson pulls me aside, congratulating us on a job well done, but his words barely register. All I can think about is Sarah, the way she looked when that gun was pointed at her, the way she crumbled in my arms after it was all over. As we leave the building, the night air cool against my skin, I feel a strange sense of emptiness. We did it. We brought them down. But at what cost? Sarah's career is in ruins, our marriage hanging by a thread, and I'm left questioning everything. The danger has passed, but the scars remain, deep and raw. We return to the motel, the adrenaline finally starting to wear off. I'm exhausted, but I know sleep won't come easily. Sarah sits on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, her hands trembling in her lap. I sit beside her, unsure of what to say. We're safe now, I say finally, though the words feel hollow. She nods, but there's no relief in her eyes. I don't know how to move on from this, she whispers, her voice barely audible. I don't either. We've been through so much, and I don't know if we can ever go back to the way things were. But I also know that I can't give up on us, not after everything we fought for. We'll figure it out, I say, though I'm not sure I believe it. We've survived this far. We can survive anything. She looks at me, her eyes searching mine for something, hope, reassurance, a reason to believe. I don't know if she finds it, but she nods, a small, uncertain smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. The next morning, we leave the motel, the sun just beginning to rise. We drive in silence, the weight of everything that's happened pressing down on us. We don't have a plan, no idea of what comes next, but we're alive, and that's something. As we drive out of the city, leaving the chaos and danger behind, I feel a flicker of hope. It's faint, barely there, but it's enough to keep me going. Maybe we can find a way to rebuild, to heal from the wounds that have been inflicted on us. It won't be easy, and I don't know if we'll ever be the same, but for the first time in a long while, I feel like we have a chance. We drive until the city fades into the distance, the open road stretching out before us. I reach over, taking Sarah's hand in mine, and she squeezes back, her grip firm and steady. We don't say anything, but in that moment, I know we're going to keep fighting, keep trying to find a way forward. The road ahead is uncertain, filled with challenges and unknowns, but we're still here. And as long as we're together, I know we can face whatever comes next. Months have passed, and life has slowly started to resemble something normal, but it's a fragile piece. We've relocated to a small town far from the city, far from the memories of what happened. The air is different here, cleaner, quieter, as if the world has decided to give us a break. But underneath that calm surface, I can still feel the tension, the weight of everything we've been through. Sarah and I try to settle into this new life, but it's not easy. The The scars from the past are still there, deep and raw, and they creep into the quiet moments when we're alone with our thoughts. I catch myself watching her sometimes, looking for signs of the woman she used to be, the woman I fell in love with. But she's different now, and so am I. We're both haunted by the things we've done, the things we've seen. Every day feels like a battle to regain some semblance of normalcy. Sarah has started working again, taking on small freelance projects, but it's not the high-powered career she once had. I've thrown myself into my own work, taking on as many IT clients as I can to keep my mind occupied. We're functioning, but there's a distance between us, a wall built from everything that's happened. Then, just when I start to think we might be okay, that we might actually make it through this, the past comes crashing back into our lives. It's a rainy evening when it happens. Sarah is in the kitchen making dinner, while I'm in the living room sorting through emails. The sound of the rain against the windows is soothing, a steady rhythm that helps to drown out the noise in my head. But then my phone buzzes and everything changes. I pick it up, glancing at the screen. It's a text from an unknown number. We're not finished. My heart skips a beat and a cold sweat breaks out across my skin. I stare at the message, willing it to be some kind of mistake, but deep down I know it's not. The remnants of the organization we thought we'd destroyed, they're still out there, and they've found us. I show Sarah the message, and I see the fear in her eyes. The same fear that's been lurking just beneath the surface since the day this all started. "What do we do?" she asks, her voice trembling. "We fight," I say, the words coming out more confident than I feel. "We're not running again." We spend the next few days on high alert, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I increase the security around our home, installing cameras, changing the locks, doing everything I can to make us feel safe. But it's not enough. The anxiety gnaws at me, making it hard to focus, hard to sleep. Then one night it happens. I'm jolted awake by the sound of shattering glass. I grab the gun I keep by the bed and rush downstairs, my heart pounding. Sarah is right behind me, fear etched on her face. The living room window is broken, and there's a man standing in the shadows, his face obscured. "Get out of here," I shout, aiming the gun at him. He doesn't move, doesn't even flinch. Instead, he steps forward into the light. My blood runs cold when I see who it is. One of the men from the video, one of the last remaining members of the organization. He's older now, his face lined with age, but his eyes are still as cold and calculating as they were back then. "We're not finished," he says, his voice low and menacing. "You thought you could escape, but there's no running from this." I tighten my grip on the gun, my hands shaking. "I'm not running," I say, though my voice wavers. He smiles, a cruel, twisted smile that sends chills down my spine. "Good, Yenin," he says, "because this ends tonight." Before I can react, he lunges at me and the gun goes off. The sound is deafening in the confined space, and I feel the recoil slam through my body. The man staggers, blood blooming on his chest, but he doesn't go down. He's on me in an instant, grappling for the gun, and we tumble to the floor, fighting for control. It's a blur of motion, fists and elbows, the sound of our grunts filling the room. I'm losing ground, my strength fading as he presses down on me, his hands closing around my throat. Spots dance in front of my eyes, and I know I'm seconds away from blacking out. Then suddenly the pressure releases, and I hear a loud crack. The man slumps to the side, and I gasp for air, coughing as I push him off me. I look up to see Sarah standing there, a baseball bat in her hands, her face pale and terrified. "Are you okay?" she asks, her voice trembling. I nod, still struggling to catch my breath. The man lies motionless on the floor, blood pooling around him. "He's dead," I say, more to myself than to her. We stare at each other for a long moment, the weight of what's just happened settling over us. Then slowly, Sarah drops the bat and falls to her knees beside me, pulling me into her arms. We sit there holding each other in the dark, the reality of what we've done sinking in. The authorities arrive not long after, the scene quickly becoming a flurry of activity. The man's body is taken away, and statements are given, but it's all a blur to me. I'm numb, the adrenaline finally wearing off, leaving me exhausted and shaken. In the days that follow, I try to make sense of everything. The man's death is ruled self-defense, and we're cleared of any wrongdoing. But the damage is done. The last remnants of the organization are gone, but at a terrible cost. Sarah and I are both scarred, physically and emotionally, by what we've been through. We've survived, but we're not the same people we were before. We decide to leave our old lives behind completely, moving to a new town, far away from the memories of the past. It's a chance to start over, to try and build something new out of the wreckage of what we've lost. But even as we settle into our new home, I can't shake the feeling that we're living on borrowed time. The scars we carry are deep, and they won't heal easily. Every day is a struggle to move forward, to find a way to live with what we've done, what we've been through. Sarah and I are closer now, in some ways, but there's still a distance between us, a chasm created by everything that's happened. We talk, we try to reconnect, but there are things we can't forget, things that hang between us like a shadow. One night, as we sit on the porch watching the sun set over the hills, I reach for her hand. She looks at me, her eyes searching mine for something I'm not sure I can give. I still love you, I say, the words coming out more like a question than a statement. She squeezes my hand, a sad smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. I love you too, she says, but there's a hesitation in her voice, a lingering doubt that I can't ignore. We sit in silence for a while, the weight of the unspoken words hanging between us. Then slowly I pull her into my arms, holding her close as the last rays of sunlight disappear below the horizon. We're both broken, scarred by what we've been through, but we're still here. And as long as we have each other, I know we can find a way to keep going, to keep fighting for something better. The future is uncertain, and there are still moments when the darkness threatens to pull us under. But for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to heal, to rebuild what we've lost. As I hold Sarah close, the night settling around us, I know that our story isn't over. It's just the beginning of a new chapter, one where we write our own ending, free from the shadows of the past. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I feel a sense of peace. I sit on the porch, the cool breeze of the evening brushing against my skin. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the yard. The town we've moved to is quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where people go to forget, to heal. It's far from the life we once knew, but maybe that's what we need, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild, even if the foundations are shaky. Sarah is inside, preparing dinner. I can hear the clatter of pots and pans through the open window. It's a familiar sound, one that used to bring comfort, but now it feels different, like a reminder of a life that no longer exists. We've survived so much, but the scars run deep. I don't know if we can ever truly go back to the way things were. I think about everything that's happened, the betrayal, the lies, the violence. It's hard to believe that it all started with something as simple as a computer check, a routine task that led to the unraveling of my entire life. The video I found on Sarah's computer was the catalyst. But the truth is, the cracks in our marriage had been forming long before that. I just hadn't seen them. In the weeks since we defeated the remnants of the organization, I've had a lot of time to reflect. The fight for survival consumed us, but now that the immediate danger has passed, we're left to face the aftermath. The emotional scars are harder to heal than the physical ones. Trust was the first casualty of this ordeal, and rebuilding it feels like an impossible task. Sarah and I talk, but our conversations are often stilted, careful. We avoid certain topics like we're afraid of reopening wounds that haven't fully closed. I can see the guilt in her eyes, the weight of everything she's done, everything we've been through. She's trying and so am I, but there's a part of me that wonders if it's enough. Can we really move past this? Or are we just fooling ourselves? She steps out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Dinner's almost ready, she says, her voice soft. I nod, offering a small smile. Smells good. She sits down beside me, the two of us watching the sun dip lower in the sky. The silence between us is heavy, but not uncomfortable. It's the silence of two people who have been through hell and are trying to find their way back to each other. "I've been thinking," she says after a while, her voice barely above a whisper, "about us, about everything that's happened." I turn to look at her, waiting for her to continue. "I know things will never be the same," she says, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "But I want to try to rebuild what we had. I love you and I don't want to lose you." Her words hang in the air, filled with sincerity and desperation. I reach out, taking her hand in mine. "I love you too," I say, and it's the truth. Despite everything, despite the lies and the pain, I still love her. But love alone isn't enough to fix what's broken. "We've been through so much," I continue, my voice steady. "And we're both different now. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we can build something new, something stronger." She nods, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I want that too." We sit in silence for a while longer, watching as the last of the sunlight disappears, leaving the sky a deep shade of purple. The world feels calm, at peace, and for the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of hope. It's fragile, like a flame that could easily be extinguished, but it's there. The future is uncertain, and I know there will be more challenges ahead. The memories of what we've been through will always be with us, haunting the edges of our minds. But we've survived, and that's more than I ever thought possible. As we stand to go inside, I pull Sarah into my arms, holding her close. She wraps her arms around me, her head resting on my chest. We stay like that for a moment, just holding each other, finding comfort in the warmth of our embrace. "I'm scared," she admits, her voice muffled against my shirt. "Me too," I say, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "But we'll face it together." We walk inside, the warmth of the house enveloping us. The kitchen smells of roasted chicken and herbs, a comforting scent that fills the space. We sit down to eat, the conversation light but genuine. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Later, as we lie in bed, I find myself thinking about the future. We've started over in this small town, far from the chaos of our old lives. There are still moments of doubt, of fear, but we're stronger now. We've made peace with our past, and we're ready to face whatever comes next. As I drift off to sleep, I know that this isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. One where we write our own story, free from the shadows of the past. And for the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of peace.